First tonight, when America's Next Top Model debuted in 2003 on an unknown network called UPN, most critics couldn't have predicted the success it would become. Nigel Barker, a fashion model and photographer, watched that very first season, intrigued by the concept of reality television.
The next season, Barker was a judge and remained a regular member on the show for 18 seasons. Barker was recently in Portland for a local photography contest at AC Hotel by Marriott Portland, which is where he sat down with us to chat about the show and his view through the lens.
It's never about judging someone just for being critical. It's always for me to be constructive, and I learn so much from everybody else's work. Their eye, what they see, because we all see things differently. You know, I look for emotion in everything, and as soon as I landed here, people were saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's cloudy, it's not sunny," because one imagines that sun is always what you want. Clouds have an emotion, have a feeling to them, and they can be heavy, they can be deep, they can be angry, they can be moody. You know, all of these things create a narrative, and it's the narrative, the story, which is what brings us into a movie, a picture, a photograph, a painting. So without all of that, it can come blah.
That's a really good way to look at it. Let's start with this. How old were you when you first grabbed a camera?
Young. I got my first proper camera when I was about 9 years old. My mother brought it for me in a flea market. It was a Brownie. It was a 1957 Kodak Brownie, which took big 120 film, which was quite expensive. You'd load it in, but you would shoot one at a time. And one of the great things about that was that you, as a result, learn to appreciate each photograph, because you can't afford to buy lots of film. So you have to really go, okay, I've only got 10 shots. I've got to make each one count. So that's a real good focus for a young photographer, to have that. And oftentimes I'll tell young photographers that I meet to sort of not just to go for the, I'm going to shoot it 1,000 ways and then pick the best one. You have to know your trade. You have to know what you're looking for, and you have to focus in, frame, exposure, get it right. Yes, you may have 1 or 2 shots on either side as safety, but ultimately it's your creation, and that's what that canvas is that you're looking at through the viewfinder.
Advice Barker now passes along in his online show Top Photographer, in which contestants complete photo challenges and face eliminations.
I think it's amazing, actually, Joe, how what you just said really actually broke down his process too. It's as if you were there. You had him jump into that position over and over again as a setup shot. It wasn't just an accidental moment.
You have a unique perspective on this too, as the photographer and as someone who's been photographed quite a bit. Does that help you think, in your trade?
You know, I think so. And I think that even if you look at great photographers from the past, whether you talk about an Irving Penn or Richard Avedon or some of the great names, these are people who took self-portraits of themselves, the original selfies. I mean, there are many, many pictures of Avedon photographing people. But people really didn't think about it or talk about it in the way they do now, because obviously the selfie is a thing.
Chin up for me, sweetie. There you go.
America's Next Top Model was a huge success. When you jumped on, when did you start to get the idea that this was going to be a successful show?
You know, season 1, I watched the show, like many. Everyone kind of loved it, but also loved to hate it. And especially the fashion industry, we were like, oh, come on, this isn't real, this is over the top, this is silly, all that kind of thing. But actually, we also realized just how much fun it was, and the world was changing. The social media was in its infancy. Things like Instagram didn't even exist. And you know, you could see reality TV for the very first time was the beginning of social media. It was the beginning of people saying, I kind of like real life. I kind of like watching what other people do. It doesn't always have to be fiction. In fact, reality is stranger than fiction. So this is more amusing, this is more entertaining.
How has the age of social media and sort of that instant gratification changed the way you work?
I understand that when I post, for example, on my social media, a photograph that I have taken that is something that I love, and it's, for me, a great shot, or maybe it was a cover of a magazine, it'll get sort of X number of likes. However, if I shoot a picture, or I have a photograph that I post that is of me shooting that picture, it will get probably X plus 10 likes. They're far more popular to see the behind the scenes on Instagram than it is actually necessarily of the picture itself. So that's something mentally that one has to understand, that it's really, social media is more of a diary. about what's happening in your life than it is about a portfolio of your best work. And I think Instagram is very interesting because it has given so many people the chance to see if they have an eye. You know, and it's like giving a pencil to a child. If you never gave that pencil to a child, he may never have drawn anything. He may never put pen to paper. And so you may never know whether he's a writer or whether he has the ability, because he never would have tried. I feel that it's really leveled the playing field by giving everyone a phone with a camera and said to a billion people, sort of, here, go at it. So a lot of photographers don't like it because they don't like the competition.
Right.
But I'm like, bring it on. Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's leveled the playing field because I can take photos with this and I still suck at it, so.
Well, I think if you have a skill set, maybe, sorry.
All right, what kind of photography does a man with that background actually enjoy, and what is Barker's favorite lens to look through? You can find out later on in our show.